Let's talk about column arrays and whether or not they are a speaker fad or some technological innovation that's just gonna stick around forever. You know, for those of you that have been following my reviews, I bought quite a few column arrays, and I always buy one with high hopes and high expectations of the audio output, and I eventually become a little disappointed in the end product, and I wind up selling it, and then I wind up buying another one. And you know, I think at this point I'm probably done buying column arrays for a while. Excuse me. But you know, I've had this video in mind for a while, mostly because when I give my opinion on column arrays, there's been a few people in the comments section that have been trying to beat me up over my opinion and basically telling me I don't know anything. So I decided to do a video kind of all-encompassing of the different column arrays I've tested out and kind of my thoughts on them and the technical aspect of why, you know, my thought is leading me in that direction. I mean, there's physics behind how sound travels, how speakers work. You can't break the laws. You maybe can bend them slightly, I suppose, and that's where a line array comes in. But you know, there's reasoning behind why a column array works and why, you know, my opinion on it is valid. So I'm just going to kind of go over it. I've got the top to my RCF J8 right here because I'm going to kind of use that as a reference point. Now I'm going to warn you in advance, this video is probably going to be a little long, it's probably going to be a little technical, and frankly maybe it's going to be a little boring along the way. But if you're curious about line arrays, column arrays, how they work, and why I'm formulating my end opinion as to whether or not they're a fad or whether or not they're worth the pricing premium or not, you know, watch the video and pay attention. And if you have any questions, throw them down in the comments section. I will say, you know, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a speaker engineer, but I've done a lot of research on how, you know, I base an opinion on a speaker, I know what my ears hear, and then a lot of times I look for the reason, you know, why am I getting this result, or how can I get a better result? So I look up the technical aspects and figure out, you know, basically how to design a system and deploy it. So anyways, I'll start with my first column array I bought was the Turbosound iP2000. My reasoning behind buying it was over other column arrays like this with a short array, as I knew the longer the array is, the more focused the directional beamforming of sound is going to be shooting forward. So that was my hope with that. But I only bought one to test it out, and I wasn't super impressed with the bass output of it. And frankly, the projection wasn't very good either, and I just wasn't super impressed with the sound quality overall, so I got rid of it right away. I only bought one to test out, never bought a second one, and just let it go down the road. Then they came out with the iP3000, you know, two 12-inch subs. I thought, well dang, that's got to have the bass that I want, right? And I liked it right off the bat. It did have the bass I wanted, but it just didn't, once again, it didn't have the projection. Kind of seemed like the sound was just shooting in every direction. It just didn't have the projection that I expected out of it. And you know, mind you, you know, we at the time we owned a dual 10 line array. So, you know, when we're hanging multiple boxes down and you're standing out 200 feet and it's still loud and it's crisp and it's clear and it's projecting out there, you know a line array when you're standing in front of it. And when you would stand in front of the iP3000, you wouldn't get that. So, you know, the question became, well, what's missing? And with the iP3000 and with the iP2000, what was missing is that they break the system up into a 5-way crossover. So the sub is one crossover, the compression drivers are one, and then that long column is actually 3 different crossover points. So in essence, you get 3 small little sections like this. And for an array to work properly together, each driver has to be doing the exact same thing. You can't have 3 different crossover points. So what you're winding up with is 3 little possible beamforming sections. Not quite though, because we'll get into that in a second. But it just, there's no line array benefit there. The array is not long enough, and it just, it's just acting as basically an omnidirectional speaker. I went to a little speaker convention recently, and one of the little classes I went to, the guy was talking about the crossover point of a line array, and he wasn't talking about the crossover point between the compression driver and the 10, 12-inch driver that's sitting next to it. He wasn't talking about the crossover point with the box. He was talking about the crossover point of the array. At what point, depending on the length of your array, does it go from omnidirectional, where sound's shooting everywhere, to directional, where the beam is focused? Because depending upon the length of the array, there is a crossover point from omnidirectional to directional. So anyways, how do you figure this out? So that was the issue with the iP2000, the issue with the iP3000. So then, I bought the JMIX8, J8. I was looking, I bought the JMIX8 because it had a mixer built in. I thought, well, portable, it doesn't have 5 crossovers in it. It's just got 2, one for the top box, one for the bottom box. I got an adjustable pole that I wanted because I was having issues with a lot of the sound out of the iP3000, iP2000 hitting people's bodies. That wasn't one thing I took into account when doing a bigger gig, is that, you need to get speakers above people's heads. It doesn't matter what kind of speaker you own, whether it's a line array or not, or a column array or not. They're not, in a big arena show with 15,000 people, they're not ground stacking a line array. They're hanging it from the ceiling, arcing it over the crowd, and shooting the sound down onto the people. Now, you can argue with me all you want on whether or not you need to get a speaker above people's heads, but I think it doesn't really matter who you ask in the pro audio field. Everybody's going to say, you're not going to set a speaker on the ground and try to shoot sound out to 500 people. It's not going to happen. You got to get the speaker up in the air. So anyways, but I like the portability of the J8. It's lightweight, it's plastic, it does sound good. The sub is kind of lacking on the output, and it does seem like it gets pretty decent projection, but it also seems like it's missing something in the mid-range, and we're going to go over why that is. So, what is beamforming? So with a point source speaker, standard regular point source speaker, 12-inch driver, compression driver. When you play a song through it, typically the sound is going to diminish 6 decibels for every doubling of distance. With a line array, you get around that, and you can typically have your sound diminish by 3 decibels for every doubling of distance. And that has to do with something with a spherical waveform versus a cylindrical waveform, I think. I don't know too much on the technical aspect of the type of waveform each one projects, but it's there. There's some research online if you want to dig into it more. I'm not going to get insanely technical. But now, to actually beamform and do that, diminishing by 3 dB instead of 6, you have to have an array that's 4 times the size of the wavelength you're trying to reproduce. And this is where column arrays fall short. The line just is not long enough. So let's take this for example. The line in this is 19 inches long from tip of driver to tip of driver over here, about 19 inches. So if it needs to be 4 times the length of the wave it's trying to reproduce, we're looking at a 4 3/4 inch wave that's actually going to be focused and beam oriented. So a 4 3/4 inch wavelength is a frequency of 2800 hertz. So the crossover point of the RCF JMIX8, J8, with this length of an array is 2800 hertz. So above 2800 hertz, yeah, it is forming that beam and it is projecting clear, nice audio, but under 2800 hertz, omnidirectional, every direction it can go. And that's really the issue, is just the array's not long enough. Because you think 2800 hertz, I mean, that's what a lot of compression drivers go down to, isn't it? Right about 2800, I think. Don't quote me on that. Some go a little bit lower, I think. I know some RCF ones will probably go down to about 800 hertz, but I think on average right around 2000. So, you're talking essentially just what comes out of the compression driver is being the -3, where everything else is -6 omnidirectional. So that's why if you stand a really far ways away from a column array speaker, yeah, people say, oh yeah, man, great hi-fi sound. Well, all you're getting is the high end. It's great for speech, it's great for intelligibility at a distance, but is it good for, general music applications, live sound, things where you need full range? Because you're basically, you're really getting everything at 2800 hertz and above at good, loud, crisp, clear volume, and everything up below that is trailing. So you really need a longer array. And now, do you need a crazy long array? I don't know. I'd like to see an array, 3 times the length of this one. How long would that be? Let's see. So if we're talking 19 times 3, it's 57 inches. So, 57 inches divided by 4, 14 1/4. So if we have a wavelength that's 14.25 inches. Oops. 14.25 inches. Yeah, I'm not doing these calculations in my head or with a calculator. I found a calculator online that's doing it for me. That is definitely not right. Oh, that's meters. Gotta change back to inches. I got a frequency of 23 hertz and I'm like, no, that is definitely impossible. Definitely impossible. 14.25. Helps if you know how to work the calculator. So there, we're getting down under 1,000, 939 hertz. But in live sound, there's a difference. We went from 4 boxes with our standard column array to 6 per side, and just that increase of 2 boxes per side was insanely noticeable on the sound quality, because when you really begin to project the full range of sound, not just the high end, but the full range forward, and really get that projection and clarity throughout the frequency range, it makes a huge difference. And that's one of my major issues of where column arrays fall short. You need a long array. And people can argue with me on that if you want, but personally, I like to hear things below 2200 hertz as well. I don't just like to hear 2200 hertz and above. And, you might call it hi-fi sound. Maybe you're getting the low-end thump and everything above 2200 hertz, but I like good full range when I'm doing sound. So that's my primary gripe with a column array, is that I really want to see one on the market with a longer array. Let's focus that beam better. And I think, with the RCF JMIX8, they say, I think it's like 30 degrees in the vertical by 110, 120 horizontal. They don't say what frequency that's at. That's the other thing you have to take into account, is the specs. At what frequency is that? Is that at 5K? Oh yeah, that's great. 30 degrees by 120 at 5K, perfect. Yeah, what's it at 500 hertz? Poof, everywhere. That's where it's at 500 hertz. So a lot of these measurements, a lot of these specs have to, you kind of got to dig a little deeper on them, because it's not 30 by 120 throughout the entire frequency spectrum. Nobody does that. It's measured at a specific frequency. They don't put what frequency it's at because it's probably not going to be insanely beneficial if they say it's at 4 or 5K. Beneficial to the sales of a speaker. So, sound-wise, great for speech. Maybe not the best for music or live sound, in my opinion. I don't think you get I don't think you get good projection. I just don't think you do. So when you compare a point source system sound-wise to a column array system sound-wise, I think the point source wins out. And I'm just basing that off of, I've got my JMIX8, and I used them for like 2 months, every gig I did. I did live sound with them, I did acoustic shows with them, I did DJ shows with them, I did a speaking event with it. I've done a ton of different events, different styled events with it, and the more events I would do with it, it's like with the iP3000, just the more events you do with it, you start to see the shortcomings. You've got a 12-inch sub, but it's not really a sub, it's a sub/mid-range driver, because the crossover point of tiny little 2-inch speakers just does not go down that far. And yeah, I will say, you do get, one of the other benefits of an array is coupling. So, do these little 2-inch arrays act like 2-inch arrays, or 2-inch speakers? No, they don't. The 2-inch speakers do couple together, and they act as a larger driver, which, couples the low frequency response of them. And, so that there are benefits that way as well, but 8 2-inch speakers, they're not going to couple into a 15 by any means. You'd need a heck of a lot more of them to do that. What this would be the equivalent to, I'm not quite sure. If somebody knows that, feel free to throw it down in the comments section, but quite positive that this does not equate to a 15-inch driver. I'd say maybe an 8-inch driver, maybe a 6, I'm not quite sure. But it definitely does not, it doesn't couple to be a really big driver, I do know that. Now, the other downside, because I said the sub in a column array isn't a true sub, it's a sub/mid-range. I consider a subwoofer at a maximum crossover point of, say, 100 hertz. That's a sub. It's doing everything in the low end. Now this, I think, on the RCF, the crossover point I think is like 220, which is a little high. Up there you really start to get, if you're mixing a band, almost everything intersects at 200 hertz. That's why a lot of people just standard cut 200 hertz out of guitar, 200 hertz out of vocal, 200 hertz out of the kick drum. Like, everything has 200 hertz. So having a crossover point at 200 hertz, I don't think is very beneficial to live sound. And I think you get too much of the, lower mid-range coming out of the sub instead of out of the tops. I like to see a crossover point maximum 100 hertz. And if you have the ability, if you have high enough quality top-end speakers, or, tops, if you can bring that crossover point down to 80, I think you're better for it. So that's the other issue with it. I've gotten a lot of, even with the RCF, it seems like I've gotten a lot of feedback issues. Now, I haven't used my M32 or my X32 with the JMIX because it's got an onboard mixer, but if you watch that review, I do complain about it only having a 7-band graphic EQ, because it's really hard to try to notch out these problem frequency areas with a 7-band graphic EQ. You chop so much out, it gets to be super thin sounding, just not the best. So, my final thoughts on the RCF JMIX8 J8, I think I'm actually going to sell my pair. And I'm going back to point source for now, just because, while it might not have the projection of a column array or a line array, you know, it might not have that projection. I believe that the sound quality is just, at this point, is better. And maybe when these column arrays get into version 2, version 3, maybe they'll get better. But I don't think sound quality is a benefit when it comes to column arrays. You know, maybe in the higher end ones, like if you look at K-array, you can really build a long array with K-array. It's really expensive, but you can do it. I don't have the money to test that out. You know, I've looked at the DB Technologies IG4T or the RCF. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it, but it looks like the exact same thing as an IG4T, but with wood cabinet. They also make a bigger one with 1010s. But the thing that I wonder about that is, yeah, you get a column, you can take the other one, stick it upside down, but you break the array with 2 compression drivers in the middle. So, you know, I went to a trade show and listened to an IG4T, or actually I had a demo here with an IG4T. At the trade show I listened to an IG3T, and, you know, I just don't know if I'm sold on that either. You know, they're you know, I mean, pardon my language, but I feel like they're half-assed attempts at creating an array, in my opinion, and they're creating the illusion of an array for marketing purposes to sell speakers. So you don't get the benefits of a true array. I'm just going to say that. With a column array, you just don't. The array is not long enough. And on top of that, you get a horrible crossover point that just doesn't work well for your mix. So like, I went out with a, you know, I wanted to build a system that was size-wise somewhat comparable to, you know, a standard 12-inch sub column array. So I bought the Yamaha DXS12 Mark IIs. I bought 2 of those and pole-mounted 2 DBR10s from Yamaha on top. And I mean, the difference in bass output. I did a prom and I dialed the sub crossover back to 80 hertz so that the little 12s could really focus on the low end. And then, you know, I ran it to the DBR10 tops. And I had people like commenting about how bassy it was. And just out of, you know, 2 12-inch subs, just the output in the bass range had to have been double, if not triple, what my RCF column array would do. I would say it beat out the iP3000 even with dual 12s, just because you're able to hone in on that lower frequency and really project it out. Now the tops, I just did a review on the DBR10 tops. I wasn't super impressed with them. You know, the high-end frequencies out of this is definitely better than the high-end frequencies out of a DBR10. I think you've got to step it up and get a little bit higher quality top to match with the sub. So I think I'm gonna buy the DXR 10 Mark IIs when they come out. Maybe the DXR 12s. I haven't decided if I'm going to bump it up to 12-inch or stick with 10-inch. I might stick with 10-inch just for portability, but I am going to step it up to a little higher quality top to match the sub. But just sound-wise, you know, you can argue with me if you want, but you get better sound out of a point source system side by side to a column array, and you can argue hi-fi sound. You know, it sounds great above, what did I say, 2200 hertz? Sounds great. Nice, crisp, and clear. Speaking events, sure. But you get below that and you really you miss out on all that mid-range, and you don't get proper bass because of the sub/mid-range driver, you know, low-mid driver. Now, where does a column array shine? It's portability. It does. You know, for the wedding DJ out there, that's looking for ease of setup, a nice clean looking system, yeah, column array is awesome. And, you know, to be honest, for pre-programmed music, or pre-recorded music, you know, they're just fine. I really have no issues with it. You know, I've done some DJ events with my RCF, and they've been fine. You know, I think you can get better sound out of a point source. But for a wedding DJ, that maybe isn't... You know, I have a DJ background, so I'm not trying to dog on DJs. But, you know, sometimes their audio standards aren't quite as high as somebody in the live sound field, because in the live sound field you're really analyzing what everything sounds like, and you're adjusting frequencies to make things sound better, you know. In the live sound field you do that, so you maybe are paying closer attention to the, you know, subtle nuances of the speaker that you have. So that's why I'm saying for a DJ playing pre-recorded music, you know, as long as the system isn't feeding back when you're talking, you know, looks are more important, I think, for a wedding DJ than, you know, getting the best sound possible. At least today's wedding DJ. The modern wedding DJ, it seems it's all about, you know, an elegant setup versus, you know, an awesome sounding setup. You know, even lights are becoming more tame in a wedding's DJ setup, as the setup needs to look more elegant and high-end than super clubby, everything moving everywhere. You know, I think it's just a product of the times, and I think the column array fits in with that. I think, you know, timing-wise, this is a pretty good time for the column arrays to come out, because it hits exactly what DJs are looking for right now. You know, so marketing, whoever decided to come out with the first column array, you know, good job. You really built a market right at the right time. You know, that's one of the reasons I've kept the RCF JMIX8 J8 combo as long as I have, is just the portability. You know, this fits in the back. I've got two things sized like 12-inch speakers. Set them down, put my tops up, and it sounds better. That, you know, size-wise, storage-wise, they take up as much space as a 12-inch speaker. Actually, maybe a little less, because there's no compression driver. So they take up the space of a 12-inch sub, small 12-inch sub. But they have better output than two 12-inch speakers. It's not quite the same as having, you know, two 12-inch speakers and a single sub. Not quite the same, because you don't have a real sub with a column array. But you do get better sound than just two 12s, I will say that. So I think that's why I think for the average wedding DJ it works quite well. For corporate audio, I don't think it works quite as well, especially, like, it's so weird. Like, I've done a lot of live sound, I've done a lot of bands, you know, I've done speaking engagements, and with a line array, with a point source system, I just, you know, it's easy to ring the system out, make it sound good, and you get good clear audio throughout the venue. But every time I've tried to mix a column array, it seemed like I've had to work extra to try to ring the system out. And I'm not 100% sure why that is. If it's just the way the whole system's crossed over, the way the dispersion works, you know, I'm not sure, but it always seems like it's just more work to try to EQ the system. So I'm not super impressed with that on a live sound end of things. So, you know, are column arrays a fad? Are they worth the pricing premium that they command right now? I don't think they're a fad. I think in select markets, people will find their use for them, especially in the wedding DJ market. You know, DJs that maybe go to gigs in their car, they're looking for a compact system, and maybe compact versatility. You know, everybody's got what they're looking for. I want the best sounding system, so that's high on my priority list. You know, on other people's priority list, maybe it's compact, you know, easy to set up, quick teardown time, clean look. Those things might be on the top of somebody else's priority list. maybe sound's not quite as important to them. So I think there is a place for column arrays. I do think over time here, we will start to see the price point of column arrays come down as the market gets saturated. I think column array manufacturers so far have enjoyed a fresh to the market, everybody wants this new product, boom. But, you know, from what I've seen, from what I've known from people that have bought column arrays recently, they're all getting special deals on them to you know, keep sales up. Nobody's paying MAP. You call it and you get a way better price. So I think already we're seeing that demand is probably waning a little bit now. There's not quite that boom, and I think pricing, you know, the market's going to dictate pricing on it. And I think manufacturers have enjoyed a very good pricing premium on them up till now, but I think we'll start to see them come down. Either that, or we'll really start to see the quality improve. You know, I really can't wait until I see the next version come out. I'm hoping we start to see a little bit longer arrays, you know, a little bit bigger, more versatile systems out of the column systems. Right now, I think they're really designed for the wedding DJ and not much else. I would not recommend them for live sound at all. I'm probably repeating myself here, but are they a fad? No. But I think they're going to find a specific market for them, a little niche market. I think for the sound professional that is geared towards, you know, the best sound they can possibly get for their audience, I think they're either going to go point source for, you know, smaller events where they maybe don't need the projection, and, you know, for bigger events, people are just going to do line array. I mean, that's the way it's going to be, because you can dictate how long you want the array to be. You know, you can decide how focused you want it. Also, I would like to touch on, just because you have 2 line array boxes does not mean you get line array. You know, you actually need to have quite a few boxes. I mean, we're talking, you know, meters in length. You know, when you go to a big concert, you don't see 4 boxes hung from the ceiling. You see like 20 hung from the ceiling, because you need that long array to derive focus in the lower frequencies. Let's see, did I say, you know, are they a fad? Are they worth the money? I don't think they're worth the pricing premium they command right now. You know, the iP3000 in the United States just went up. It was $1,500. I managed to get mine for right around $1,200. I don't remember the exact price. I didn't think they were worth the $1,200 I paid, let alone the $1,500. And now the prices went up to $2,000 a piece. I mean, if you're spending $4,000 for a sound system, you can get a way better sound system than a pair of iP3000s. I mean, that's just a fact. Don't spend $4,000 on a column array. You know, if you're looking at the RCF J8, you know, you can get a pair of those for $2,000. They're $999 a map each. You know, that's not so bad. If portability is what you're looking for, you know, I think you can get, you know, you could probably shop around and get evolves for $1,200 to $1,300 if you find the right retailer that's looking to move some product. But, you know, even on the evolves, I don't think I'd be willing to pay MAP on them. I think the pricing premium is still there, and I think we're going to see those prices start to drop back in the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they'll come out with something new that'll keep the pricing up there. But I don't think they're worth the price. If you're looking to buy a column array and that's really what you want, you know, shop for a deal. There are deals to be had on there. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything that I rambled off here, you know, feel free to throw it down in the comments section. If you want to argue about directivity and stuff like that, you know, make sure you come up with something other than you have no idea what you're talking about. Make sure you actually have an argument with some facts to throw back at me. I know there's a few people that like to argue with me, so, you know, make sure you come back with some actual facts instead of just saying you don't know what you're talking about because I went over the math on how directivity with a line array works in this video. So anyways, that's all I got to say about the matter. I probably will not do any. I was thinking about doing a follow-up review on my J8 JMIX8, but you know what? I kind of touched on it in this video because I was using it as a reference point. So I don't think I'm going to do that in the notes section. I'll probably put that this also includes my final review on it and kind of why I'm not keeping it. It's a nice speaker. If I just did weddings, I would probably keep it. But I don't want to have one set of speakers just for weddings. Like, you know, I'm just in our inventory, I'm tired of having, you know, this speaker for this speaker for this speaker for this speaker for this. I would just like to have a couple product lines that are good for what we do. And so I'm trimming down our inventory just to make it make more sense. You know, subwoofers, we had 5 different models of subwoofers in inventory. Why did we need that many? I don't know. So we have a 12-inch for small events, nice big 18 for big events, bigger event, couple them together, use more subs. Going forward, I really haven't decided what I want for tops yet. I do want something that's really nice and portable to go with my 12-inch subs. And then on the other end, you know, I really do want a top that is good enough. I'd love to have a system that could cover 1,000 people. I'm downsizing my production. You know, whether that's possible without going with, you know, some sort of array, I really want to steer clear of arrays at this point. You know, I don't want to have to buy 12 boxes of a, you know, $1,500 a box array to get the output that I'm looking for. I just want to stick with point source for now. So I'm hoping I can get up to that 1,000 people mark with a point source. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, until next time, have a good day.